Good morning, Lynda. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really appreciate your time. I know it's the weekend for you in Australia. Actually, I have known you for quite a number of years, and it's just fantastic to connect now on another level. You have got 20 plus years in the HR industry, so who better to have on the show today? Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to hear about your background.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and hoping to hear a little bit about my journey in the HR area and helping people gain employment and to land the job that they're looking for.
Absolutely fantastic. So I would love to hear your experience over the last 20 plus years, which is fantastic. But how do you identify talent? And obviously we've got huge numbers of candidates applying for positions, no matter what sector at the minute these days, with all of the COVID happening. How, from your perspective, would you identify talent in an application?
Yes. So when we request we have a job vacancy and we request applications, of course, and we do, particularly here in Australia, a lot of businesses ask the applicants to address the key selection criteria, which is outlined in the position description. So that helps us, I guess, filter out the ones that perhaps may not be suitable for the role that we're trying to fill. So the CVs, of course, they need to be succinct. And when, we're all very busy in our lives, even the recruiters or the organisations. So what we're looking for is some standouts that and keywords that that are specific to the particular role. So it's a bit like the person's marketing their product, which is them, to us to say, I'm the right person for that job. So that's filtering a lot of applications is quite a big task as well.
I can imagine. Myself alone, reading CVs on a daily basis and recruiting on an ad hoc basis, I really understand. I want to come back to the point that you mentioned about key selection criteria, because I feel that this is quite unique, whether it's to the Australian or, sort of the Western world, because certainly it's not something common in the UAE. Could you explain how someone should address key selection criteria, and more importantly, why, or what brings that out? Why you use this instead of just a CV alone?
Yes, so if you imagine CVs, so you can just get onto a Microsoft suite product and they've got a whole suite of different CVs, and it's generally the CV that takes your eye and you think, oh, I like the style of that, and you fill out the details of your experience. So can you imagine that, if there's even 50 applications, there's potentially 50 designs of CVs. So there's that overload of senses for us. So, and of course, the layout and so on and so forth. So we would have to read 50 of them and sometimes trying to pick through what that applicant is trying to show us. So sometimes their title in the role that they're holding right now may not even, the wording may be just slightly different, but it's exactly the same role. I know that in HR, we used to be called personnel officers, then it became human resources. Now we're chief people officers. So if you don't understand that, you'd be trying to figure out, well, what position do you hold, and do you have those skill set? So the CV gives an indication of the positions that you've held and the tasks that you've done. You've got your qualifications, maybe some interests that you do, because sometimes interest does add value, and I may add a little bit more to that later on for you, Trish. But so that's a little bit about who you are. So the reason we ask for the key selection criteria, it's in the position description. So when you apply, the position description should be there, or the job description, whichever word is used in your country. And generally, hopefully, it shouldn't be more than 6, but sometimes it can be a little bit more, but just thinking around 6 to 7 key selection criteria. So for example, if there's one that says communication, that's a pretty standard key selection criteria, particularly if you're going to be, if you've got stakeholders that you need to engage with. So how do you demonstrate? So it would say you have to be able to demonstrate these key selection criteria. So it's just doing a little bit of a paragraph of how you demonstrate your communication style or your communication. So with to be able to demonstrate, it's giving us an example. So you put it on a piece of paper, on a document, and you would have the heading, communication as one of the key selection criteria. And then you would say, an example of when I've demonstrated excellent communication skills is when I did X, Y, Z. So it might be a complex situation that you've experienced. So you're highlighting when you've actually demonstrated really good good communication skills. So that is why we ask that, because generally we'll lean to that. We'll look at your resume, yes, qualified. We'll probably recognise title. That doesn't really matter. We can see what you're doing underneath, and we just say, oh, well, that's the title of that business's position. And then we look at the key selection criteria. So that is actually when we hold on to it, we say, yep, we are interested to learn a little bit more about that individual, and we'd like to invite them to an interview.
That's fantastic. I think, and I will definitely come back to the interest question or topic in a minute. But I want to ask your insights, because obviously it's a lot of time when you've got 50 people plus applying. Now, I know in the UAE, sometimes we've got hundreds and unfortunately, sometimes even thousands of applications. As you can imagine, the talent pools are so big. Now, key selection criteria is, I'm assuming, but they can be 1.5 pages, maybe a maximum of 2. So how are you filtering all of this? Is there an applicant tracking software that would even filter not only the CV, but the key selection criteria, or is the ATS only for the CV?
So with our software program that we use, it doesn't filter out. We haven't set it up as such. Our recruitment program that we set up, and they can be set up in every organisation sets it up with, I guess, a set of questions that if you answer a specific way, it'll either leave it in the potential. If it's answered the wrong way, not the wrong way, but if you don't have that skill set or maybe residency, etc., or qualification, it will push it into the unsuccessful and not suitable area. But within our one, we then read through the key selection criteria in the application. So it is, yes, very long, and it can be long. So exactly the same thing. So when, for example, if I'm looking, and our process is that you must upload 3 documents: your CV, a cover letter, and key selection criteria. So when I'm looking through, if there's only 1 document, I'll have a quick look to make sure it hasn't all been PDF'd in one, the 3 documents, because we still don't want to miss very good candidates. But if it's only got the CV and a quick nothing else, then it's straight into the, unfortunately. So yeah, there is that little bit of a bit of that process. So we are skimming. If you're thinking about this is part of our BAU, business as usual. So for example, I will do the shortlisting and then we could have 15 candidates that perhaps could be shortlisted. That then goes to the manager, who is also doing their day-to-day job. So therefore, they're going through that process as well. So some software programs definitely are set up that there is a filtering, and that could be the questioning process. So every software program is very different. Yeah.
I think this is why it's important. So many people get caught up on the ATS, applicant tracking software, really fuss and stress over it. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned, there's so many different versions, so many different brands, companies, etc. So long as I guess that you're one really due diligent in terms of following instructions of the job advert. I think incorporating the right keywords into every application. So many people utilize one CV or one cover letter, send it to 50 adverts, for example, and then get frustrated that they don't hear back. So I think, and I understand it's time consuming for job seekers, but if you really want to maximize your chances, it's so important that you say a focus, strategic, and read the job description for every application.
Correct. And Trish, perfect what you've actually said, that when my heart goes out to all applicants, because I've been a job applicant myself. I've even worked in, when you apply for HR roles and they don't get back to you. So, and then you think, this is my industry, and I can see, that it's not, for whatever reason, they don't get back to you. But then I understand, I can imagine, because I've been on the other side of the fence where you can see 200 applications. Now I can give a tip for how candidates can do that. So most candidates are looking for a role that's similar. If you're an engineer, you're looking for an engineer role. If you're a marketing, you're looking for marketing. So generally, the key selection criteria, or the criteria that they're looking for, are pretty similar. So for example, maybe a marketing person. So perhaps it's obviously communication. All roles have communication. If it's project management, because you may have to manage little projects in your marketing, that might be one of the key selection criteria. I would suggest to have a sheet, a couple of set up a document and have 3 or 4 examples of when you've demonstrated good communication, and you're not reinventing the wheel, you're just copying and pasting into that particular job. So you're not actually, every time you're applying, thinking, okay, now how do I demonstrate communication, or how do I, so you've got to go to template with all the skill sets. So then all you're doing is just adding it to that key selection criteria. You have that one sheet. If it's 6 key selection criteria, remember back in the days when you were studying, you had to answer a question, put that key selection criteria as the question or the heading, and then put your response down below, then the next one in bold or number 2, or however you want it. So it's easy to read for us. You're trying to, I guess for the applicant, be considerate of us and think about, maybe try to think, I know it sounds, maybe it's just thinking about us as well.
From your side.
Yeah, from our side. As I said, my heart goes out when we get people, when we invite people to interviews. I'm always very thankful for their time and effort, because we do see some applications where you can see they've spent a lot of time on their application. They may not progress to the next stage. Of course, not everyone can get the job, but I genuinely appreciate the time and effort that they've put in, because it is very emotional, because what you're doing is, once you've seen that job, you have to think in your mind, is this what I want to do? Is this the company I want to work for? So you've got to get your mind ready for all that. And that's a lot of emotion attached to the application process. So, and completely understand if you don't hear anything back, you do feel quite let down. So
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, it's a pain point for a lot of job seekers globally. Obviously, working and having a Dubai-based client, I'm working with people at an international scale, because everyone sort of aims to come to Dubai, or not everyone, a lot of people want to come to Dubai, and they all report or give feedback the same issue, whether it's UAE or their home country. So I feel maybe in general, there's a lot of gaps or improvements that could be occurring to a lot of the applications that we are utilizing, or job portals even, because at the end of the day, it's even emotional and mental health. When you've been applying for so many jobs and don't hear anything, you start to doubt yourself as a job seeker and question your own abilities, which it's really sad, because there's so many high-performing individuals.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that, and this is so we're a multicultural organisation where I work. Australia is multicultural. So therefore, some people that are applying for jobs, English is their second language. So even and I'm not picky in regards to that, as in if I see how maybe something is written, it's in their thought process or their language or grammar. So that's okay. If it was somebody from Australia and you knew they were Anglo and they were brought up here, you'd be thinking, hang on a minute, you need to know how to spell. But you can really tell, just because they're from another country and English is their second language. I'm usually very impressed that how great their English is and their grammar and so on. But Yes, so that it is very emotional, and and it could be that sometimes if they're applying, just hitting the button, that is throwing mud at the wall and seeing which sticks, and that's not the process. I can give you an example, a perfect example, where last year we were looking for graduate accountants, so straight out of uni or a couple of years out. And I had 300 applications, and of the 300, 200 didn't address the key selection criteria. So they went directly, and it was very sad. So I still feel very sad for people that, because I see them, these are young people that are trying to get their foot in the door. And then of the 100, then we actually went through the 100 applications. And we appointed a girl who was on a visa and was trying to get her points so that she could get her residency here. So it's not always that it has to be somebody that's Australian. We do then look at, okay, this person's trying to X, Y, Z. So she had the right skill set, also the attitude and all those sorts of things. So
perfect. Yeah, I definitely think that that once Australian borders open up, there will be a skill shortage here. And I really
already is.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. So I think that there'll be certainly more opportunities in Australia once the borders do open up and things maybe settle, or we establish sort of a new norm within the country. So yeah, I guess keep your eyes out for all of those listening. Australia definitely will be a place that you can begin to consider in due time. Get your documents ready now. And of course, let me know if you need any help. I'm more than happy to. Lynda, I would love to just come back, and I've got two further questions. So you mentioned a little while ago about putting interests on your CV or LinkedIn profile or job application documents. What is your reasoning or knowledge behind this?
Now, this is just something, I guess, that's probably people have done for many, many years. Some organisations, it may not matter. So, for example, interests that may demonstrate a particular skill that is required in the job, but you do it in a voluntary or it's an interest. So, for example, if you're a sports coach, I was going to say a footy coach. Here in Aussie, footy, soccer, football, AFL, whichever. You're coaching a group of people, young, old, and things like that. And you might say that you're a coach of a team that has won the grand final or the
Premier.
Whichever. So when I look at that, I think, okay, this person is looking to do a leadership role, but they're also doing that in their personal life as well. So there are some skill sets. So they're transferable. I know, most of us, it is hard sometimes because you think, okay, really, what are my interests? I like to read, I like to go for a walk, I like to take my dog for a walk, things like that. But perhaps, if you're a person that does dog walking, that I know that might sound a bit unusual, but you might have a dog walking business. So that means you're a bit more out there and thinking, and communicating with your clients and going out, trying to find clients and things like that. Yeah.
No, I think it's right, especially for the younger generation, when you've got, say, maybe 5 less years worth of experience, or maybe even 10 and under, some people start a little bit later, which is totally fine. And you need to be able to showcase other skills if you've got a limited work experience. And exactly what you said, they're transferable. And at the end of the day, people prefer, or, HR is so important to have skills rather than just job titles. So I think you really hit the nail on the head on that one.
Yeah, that's so true. For younger kids out of school, and not all children or school-based children have second jobs, and that might be due to family
dynamics
that don't want, or their parents don't want them to work. They want them to focus on their education. So there's that little bit of that can push, give them less opportunity if they've got maybe if they're playing a sport. So that means that they're used to being in a team or joining other groups and things like that. Volunteering is another thing, particularly if you're going for a job that's when you say not-for-profit, so more of a social organisation that are supporting the underprivileged or etc. That even if you're doing some voluntary work, because that demonstrates that you've got a community mindset, and that you're open to to supporting others other than just being self.
Absolutely. I love it. It's really great. I have one more question for you, Lynda. I know you've been great. So do you foresee any changes in the HR industry coming, or is there, any new advancements that you foresee? I know, building over the 20 years of experience, things might have already changed and moving forward more so.
Well, I have seen, of course, when applications used to come through firstly in the mail, and then it went through email, and we were all very excited about that. And then, of course, we've gone into the HR recruitment software program. So foreseeing in the future, well, that's, I'm even in my own mind, I'm trying to be very creative in our thinking, just to even get people in Melbourne CBD, I'm in the education sector, and we're not always looking for teachers. Of course, there are departments that have to support teachers. It's just trying to figure out what it is that the HR is looking for. It's obviously the skill of if you've got a degree or a qualification that is required. I'm thinking, I know in HR, analytics seems to be a little bit more that's heading in the direction of seeing, using software now to understand what their employee profile is, to be able to predict or, manage the skill force and staff, etc. So that's really becoming, it's not just in HR how many staff, but it's also about how the business can do their business better with what they've got and what do they need to make it better. So
fantastic. No,
analytics seems to be the very fashionable word. So, and I see a lot of courses that offer that. One more little thing, and this is here in Australia, I'm not really sure elsewhere, but the qualifications that are provided. So what will happen, I know, I'm considering that as we start to engage, get people back into the country, open it up, the government will start throwing money towards registered training organisations or to upskill people. When I worked in, not in Gippsland, so in the area of what we call regional Victoria, where less people, so people wanted to live in the city, so it was always very hard to get people into the country area. But in Australia, anyone could be an RTO, a registered training organ. I could become one, but it doesn't mean that I'm great at providing training. So just my recommendation, if you're looking to upskill, do a diploma, certificate, etc., look for a training provider that is well known. Not the local one around the corner. I'm sorry for the little ones around the corner, but a reputable organisation. I do, and I know, and we have recruited in the past in the health industry where some people got a certificate from a community health type organisation and others got it through a reputable TAFE, large TAFE organisation. We had to retrain the others that had the certificate, but the skill set and what they had learned was not up to par. So just be mindful. I know that the more reputable ones may be more costly. The reason they've got the facilities, the infrastructure, the training providers, everything behind them. The other ones are smaller, but they don't have all that support. So that's a consideration that I would suggest. Just be very careful about who you use to get that qualification.
Fantastic, Lynda. I really, really appreciate your time. I'm just going to summarize our call and give the top tips, and please feel free to add. So based on your experience, we just mentioned making sure that we've got a reputable organisation for any new qualifications that we would like to get under our belt. Skills are far more, I guess, important or vital to be able to showcase rather than maybe job titles, for example. Tailoring our application, so making sure that we've got, keywords, skill sets that are relevant to the position for each and every application. And I guess maybe anything else from your side in closing? Some tips?
yeah, it's not unusual to change or slightly change your resume as well to the role. So there could be some, and moving. So in if you've got a job and then you've got some of the key areas that you've succeeded in, maybe the third dot point needs to be moved up to the top.
Yep.
Because what we're looking at is, it's not skimming, but they're the things that are going to pop out, and we'll put them over there to look again. But if we have to go through those documents, and it's 5 pages, and you don't need to go back to 1998 or 2000, or when you went to school or primary school, or where you went to primary school.
Yes.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not relevant. It's the world's changed so much, it keeps changing. Really, what happened in 20 years ago may not be relevant now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Well, once again, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Lynda. I'm wishing you all of the best for the remaining of the year. And as always, let's keep connected.
Yes, thank you. And all I can say is that Trish and I, we do chat a lot in chat room, and I do provide, some of the things that we're experiencing. So I would highly recommend liaising with Trish, because she does have a wealth of information, particularly in Australia. So if you're looking to try to find a job here in Oz, reach out to Trish, because she has worked here. She's got so many connections, and lots of people that work here in Australia. So yeah.
Lynda, thank you so much.
Pepper a line.
Thank you, Lynda. Do you have a tip box?
Yes. Yeah.